Shalom, I'm Rabbi Stewart, and it's a joy to be with you today at Your Jewish Connection. And as you know, we want to connect you to the Jewish roots of the Christian faith, the Jewishness of Jesus, give you practical teachings for everyday life. And this week and over the next 3 weeks, actually, we're going to connect you to the land of Israel, because I'm overjoyed to have with me today my daughter Miriam, who's been living in the land of Israel for the last 14 years. Welcome,
hey, everybody.
Miriam. Yeah, it's great to have you. And as a citizen of Israel, Miriam's going to give you an insider look into life in Israel. And today we're going to take a look at her journey back to the Promised Land. Stay tuned. Today I'm talking with my daughter Miriam. She is a citizen of Israel, has been living there for 14 years. Miriam, tell us what moved you to want to make Aliyah, to immigrate to Israel 14 years ago?
Before I tell you what made me want to bring myself to Israel, let me give you a little bit of background. You know this story, but maybe not from my perspective. But I'm going to tell the viewers a little bit about my history and how I grew up in Belarus. So when I was 13 years old, my parents went on an outreach to Minsk, Belarus. And after 2 weeks of hanging out with grandma, they come back and they're like, hey, kids, we're moving to Belarus. And we're like, Bella, what? So that was the beginning of our journey. And as a 13-year-old teenage girl, I wasn't super excited about leaving my BFF and everything that was known to me at the time.
I know what BFF is now because you told me the other day. Best friend. Wow.
Best friends forever.
Oh, best friends forever. Sorry.
But after moving there, I quickly learned that it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I was so happy to be part of something different than your typical upbringing. And I was proud to see just all the different things that my parents were doing to help people. My parents started a Messianic congregation in Belarus, as well as a humanitarian aid organization. Spent many days unloading humanitarian aid trucks.
You were good at it.
I remember eating tuna straight from the can because we were so hungry, things like that. But when I was about 16 years old, I remember being on a train to Siberia. We were doing an outreach in Siberia, 3-day train ride. And I remember that you and Mom were in the other room, and me and Josh, my brother Josh, were writing some music. We like to write music together, and we wrote a new song. And I was really eager to share that song with you, and so I came, interrupted. And you guys are sitting with another couple, and you said, not now. An hour later, interrupted again, and not now. And then afterwards, I started getting annoyed, and so I felt like I had this whole, the image with the little devil and then the little angel on your shoulder, and the little devil's telling me, you see, this is what people are talking about. Ministers never have time for their kids, and they're always putting their kids on a back burner. And then the other little guy on my shoulder was saying, well, you're just being a spoiled brat. You just want, your parents' attention when you want it, and it's not like they've ever put you guys on the back burner.
What was the reality going on there?
So anyway, basically, I felt like at that moment I had a decision to make, and I could decide to start becoming bitter for what you guys are doing and the lack of time I felt I was not getting or something like that. Or I could be proud of how many people you were helping. Now, little did I know, I found out later that you guys were helping a couple from getting divorced. But I chose to be proud of my parents. That day I chose to be proud of you guys, and that's when a kind of a fire started lighting inside of me that I wanted to be a lot like you guys and serve like you guys. And I just chose to be proud instead of bitter for what I didn't have. And this isn't in our notes.
Uh-oh.
But I just want to take a second to talk about my parents and my dad.
Now she's going to embarrass me.
I've worked for a big Christian television station for 12 years, met a lot of pastors, a lot of people out there, and I just want to let you guys know, coming from me, I know who am I, but coming from a person who's lived with him for many years, this guy's the real deal. Uh-oh. My parents are the real deal. I mean, they have sacrificed over and over, and not so much so that they sacrifice that they're not there for their kids. Every single one of us, there's 4 of us, I have 3 siblings, can say that they were always there for us. And in the moments that counted, they would cancel flights, fly across the country, and be there for us. And but I just want to encourage you to know that these people are the real deal. They have always gone over and beyond, sacrificially serving God and his kingdom, totally sold out and totally unself-focused. The sacrifices they make sometimes frustrate their kids because we're like, can you guys take care of yourself sometimes?
God takes care of us. Thank you, Miriam, for those kind words. It's always pleasant to hear things like that from your own children. But, really, we serve the greatest. Yeshua is the greatest, and we're just trying to follow his example. But I'm glad it made a positive impression on you and my other 3 children.
My parents are kind of the coolest people I know, and the most godly and selfless, kingdom-focused people I know. So you should be encouraged by that and
how much did
enjoy
I promise
listening.
to pay you for that?
Anyway, where was I? So when I was about 18 years old, still in Belarus, my other 3 siblings decided to go to the U.S. To pursue university in the U.S. And as I was praying about where I should go, I felt like I wasn't getting an answer. I got deathly ill. Long story short, found myself in a Belarusian hospital, which is at least 60 years behind the U.S. medically. Not the greatest place you want to find yourself. And
especially at that time.
And I remember at this point, my blood had almost no water in it, and it was barely flowing through my body. I was in and out of consciousness. And I remember my parents are like in there praying, and all the leaders of the congregation are in there praying, and it's like noisy and crazy. And my parents are like, "Is there anybody you didn't forgive?" and I'm like, "I think I forgave everybody." And they're in there praying for healing. And then I had a brief moment where you guys were actually making a decision to send me to surgery or not, which they said either way she'll probably die. And so all the doctors were out of the room, and it was quiet, and nobody was in the hospital room. And I just looked out my window, and I just told Yeshua. And I always had this image as a little kid, looking at the children's Bibles, and all the little kids sitting on Yeshua's lap. And I was always like, man, I wish I could die young so that I could run and hug Yeshua. And I always wanted to hug him. So at that moment, I prayed, and I just wanted to have Yeshua with me no matter what was going to happen. And I really just truly felt his physical embrace stronger than I've ever felt before. I immediately was able to get out of my bed. The doctors thought I had a high on drugs. They did a blood test. My blood was perfect, went from having not, completely loss of water to
I mean,
to
you
being
looked
perfect.
completely different. Your face was shining when we walked back in the room, and you were green with like a death green on you for hours already. While we were with you in that room, we were just out for 10 minutes, and your face was shining.
After that, I knew I really wanted to just serve the Lord, and that's commit my life to being like my parents and serving the Lord and doing what I could. And so I stayed in Belarus, and I participated in the different things that they were doing. By
the way, we're just so grateful for that amazing healing miracle, and we just pray that whoever out there is in need of a healing miracle, that God would just send you grace and power from his Holy Spirit, his Ruach HaKodesh,
yes, amen.
In Yeshua's name.
So I was excited to be part of the ministry that my parents were doing in Belarus. I immediately started visiting the orphans. We would take the orphans, me and the other teens, we would rally up and take the orphans out to McDonald's, which was a huge deal, to amusement parks. We would do all different kinds of things with them. We would teach them Bible stories. And we would just try to love on them and teach them, because the way that the society in Belarus treated the orphans was basically that they're trash, and they were told in school that they were trash. And so we just wanted to let them know that Jesus loved them and Yeshua loved them no matter what. And so we would hang out with the orphans a lot. We would hang out in the children's hospital. And this is what the young people, 16, 17-year-olds are doing. We had a prayer meeting that we would get together. So pretty much...
Well, you were leading the teen ministry at this point in time.
Yes. And I thought I was quite the hot shot, but God was using me anyway, even though I still had a lot to grow.
Yes.
But I just, it was exciting for me because we were together all the time, every day. Monday was teen prayer meeting. Tuesday, we would go to the orphanage. Wednesday, we would play sports together. Thursday, we would go to the children's hospitals. And Friday we would have leadership meetings, and then Shabbat we would have service together.
You know, for me and Mom, it was just such a delight to see all of our 4 kids participating in ministry, and then seeing you lead the teens and so many of the teens fire up with the heart of Yeshua to serve those that are less fortunate. It's awesome.
It was
we
fun.
love
It was kind of like the golden years of my life. I really enjoyed it, and definitely I'm super grateful that you guys listened to God's calling, even when people told you, how dare you take 4 children over to Belarus? What are you doing to their lives? It was definitely the best decision you could have made for us and for our lives and where God was taking us. And so I'm really excited about that. And so as I was serving in these different areas in your ministry, one thing that my parents had set up in their congregation was that no one like owned a ministry in a sense. Like it wasn't Miriam's ministry in charge of the youth or so-and-so. And so that way you wouldn't end up having like a 70-year-old woman leading the dance ministry or something like that, or the youth ministry. So there was this system of constantly I had to have every person leading a ministry had to have 2 people they were raising up to take over, and would constantly give them opportunities to rise up in their leadership.
And so this pattern gave you a springboard to kind of consider your next move, which was to study in Israel. And we're going to talk about that some more, why you went to study in Israel, but how that led to you actually making Aliyah, which means to ascend or go up or to immigrate to the promised land, the land promised by God to the Jewish people. So stay tuned, and we're going to talk more about this young Jewish lady's journey back to the homeland, the promised land, Israel. I'm Rabbi Stewart, and I'm here with my daughter Miriam. She has been living in the land of Israel for the past 14 years, and we're back to that question: what made you? What was it inside of you that made you want to move to Israel, to immigrate, and to become a citizen?
Well, first of all, for me, it's a biblical calling for the Jewish people to return to their homeland. Genesis 13:14, I don't know it by heart, I'm going to read it. It says, He said, God speaking to Abraham, lift your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward, for all the land which you see I give you and your descendants forever. Isaiah 11:11, He will raise a banner for the nations and farther the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the 4 quarters of the earth. So basically, returning to the land was from every nation. Millions of Jews have immigrated to the land of Israel from all over the world in literal fulfillment of God's promises made through the prophet Isaiah. And so basically, I'm excited to be part of this fulfillment of prophecy, along with the biblical calling.
It's an amazing prophecy, and it's being fulfilled in our days, folks.
Along with the biblical calling, I'm also a Zionist. A Zionist is someone who believes in creating again a Jewish homeland in the land promised to God forever and ever. Promised by God to Abraham forever and ever that his descendants would live there.
Yes.
And so a Zionist is someone who returning to the land, cultivating the land, and just basically a Jewish person existing in the land of Israel today. It was exciting for me to be such part of such a rich culture. There's so many different peoples from different countries: Russia, Italy, Romania, Spain, all over Europe, England, America, South America, Ethiopia,
Pretty
all
much
speaking
every
different
country.
Yes.
You know, it's like we have Jews coming from the 4 corners of the earth.
I just met a Chinese Jewish girl the other day. She's in my class.
I got a funny story about that, but I won't get into it.
So all speaking different languages and having different cultures, but identifying together with the Hebrew language and their Jewish culture as a way of living. And so it's really exciting for me. For instance, on Shabbat, which is the 7th day of rest for Jewish people, they take that literally, and the entire country shuts down. You won't have restaurants, you won't have malls, you won't have public transportation. It's pretty much a ghost town, and you're pretty much forced to rest and enjoy God's presence. Like, kind of like, how can I explain? I want the viewers to really explain that, understand this. So it's kind of like, here we go. When you pull through the Chick-fil-A drive-through on a Sunday with your chicken nuggets cravings, And then you drive up to the window and you're like, everything's closed. It's Sunday. Don't. So it's pretty much like that. Everything is closed and you can't go out. There's no kind of, in a sense, this just serenity and realizing that God is God and Shabbat's a day to rest, and you hang out with your family, you go to services, and I
love
think it's
Shabbat
really great.
in Israel because, as you said, pretty much everything closes down, and it's like we're forced to stop and just take a rest, just like the scriptures tell us to, and to refocus on God, family, and the important things of life.
So I originally went to Israel for a year to do Bible school. And as I was there, I definitely felt at home there. And I knew that this was my homeland and this is where I was supposed to be. And I was just happy to be part of my next chapter in my life.
Now, you're a Messianic Jew, a Jewish follower of Yeshua, Jesus. And you live in the only Messianic and Christian Moshav in Israel today. So first, tell us what a Moshav is, and tell us about this Messianic and Christian Moshav.
Well, a Moshav is like community living.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a modern-day village where people are living together. And yes, I live in Moshav Yad Hashmonah. It's the only Messianic Christian Moshav in Israel. So it's the only kind of Messianic Christian community in all of Israel. And it's such a blessing to live there where I know my children are surrounded with good friends, good Christian Messianic friends. And it's a safe, healthy environment where they can grow in their faith in Yeshua as they continue to grow up. I do recognize that this is a special, unique thing, as in 1948, there were only 3 Messianic congregations in Israel and about 100 Messianic Jews in the country. Whereas today, we have over 200 congregations in the country and about 15,000 Jewish followers of Yeshua. We have grown a lot over the years, but we're still a minority in the land. For my generation of Messianic believers, I'm in my 30s, they were usually the only followers of Yeshua in their classroom, in their school, and they could often be made fun of or oppressed for being a believer in Yeshua. But today, most people know a Messianic Jew or have a friend who's a Messianic Jew, or many people know different Messianic Jews today and are familiar with Messianic Judaism. And so it's kind of a different feel for me. And for instance, my children, they have 6 other Messianic Jews in their classroom, let alone their school. Their school has at least 56 Messianic Jews in their school. So it's something that's really changed over the years. In fact, in the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, where young men and women are have military service at the age of 18, the officers of the IDF are usually pretty excited to find out that they have Messianic Jews in their unit, because the Messianic Jews have made a name for themselves being some of the harder working, servant-hearted soldiers who tend to excel. Mm-hmm. So most of the people in Israel do respect us as another branch of Judaism, but it's just the only people who kind of oppose us would be the Orthodox religious Jews, which those are the guys who are dressed with the curls and the black and white. And so these would be the only guys who kind of oppose us, but they only make up 20% of the country. The rest of the people, there's part of us Messianic, and then there's a lot of secular people in Israel. So I know that when people picture Jewish people, I think they do picture, in a sense, like the black hat and the curls, but that's only 20% of the people in Israel. Most of them look like me or you, or look kind of,
and it is amazing. I mean, as you know, we also have an outreach in India where we meet thousands of Israelis that are on a search. They're seeking for spirituality, and their hearts are very open to Yeshua, and they all have, almost all have very positive viewpoints of Messianic Jews that they've met in the land of Israel, just like you said. Yeah, and so, these are very interesting insights into what life is like in the land of Israel. And we want all of our audience to understand what the real picture of life is in Israel. And so next week, we want you to make sure that you tune in next Saturday at 9:30 in the morning, Sunday at 6:30 p.m., right here at WNIV, because we are going to be contrasting the picture that you get of life in Israel between Jewish Israelis, Palestinians, and Arab Israeli citizens, what you see on the BBC and CNN, and what the reality is. Because oftentimes Israel is portrayed as the oppressor of the Palestinian people, and Miriam's going to share with you really how so many Israelis and Palestinians live together in a very friendly and warm way. You're Jewish, you live in Israel, you have quite a few Palestinian friends. I want to hear all about it next week, so don't miss next week. By the way, I want to let you know that you can find this episode and every other episode of Your Jewish Connection, both the audio and the video, on our website, reachii.org. And if you're moved and inspired by any of them, let me encourage you to share them with your friends. I also want to let you know that we are again offering to you a prayer guide, how to pray for the Jewish people. And many people ask me, I pray for Israel, I pray for the Jewish people, but I want to pray more effectively. And this is the reason that we put this prayer guide together for you. It's free. Just go to our website, reachii.org, and we'll be happy to send you the digital copy of this prayer guide. And it's sure to help you pray according to the scripture, according to the heart of Yeshua, to pray more effectively for Israel and the Jewish people. I just want to pray right now, and we're going to close this broadcast. Father God, we just thank you for your amazing love for us. We thank you for fulfilling the prophecies that you uttered through the Jewish prophets. You inspired them to put them down in the Bible through hundreds and thousands of years, that we see Israel miraculously rebirthed as a modern state, a homeland for the Jewish people, and Jewish people coming from the four corners of the earth to make Aliyah, to immigrate back to the land you promised. Father, this just affirms to us that your word is true, that the Bible is true, and that is a rock and a foundation for our lives. Thank you so much for being so faithful to the Jewish people and to all. In Yeshua's name, amen.